Welcome to Moms on the Ground. I'm Angela.
I'm Melissa.
We have brought an amazing podcast to you today. We wanted to discuss the public records request as it pertains to what we're calling as the trans student hustle.
Yes, it's a hustle. It's a hustle for cash.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's not funny. It really isn't funny, but sometimes you just have to let the giggles out.
you have to laugh because you can't even believe that we're living in this kind of time. But
It's so true.
anyway, I guess you want to.
No, I want you to get started. We've got a lot of information to kind of unravel. So for those that are watching, I'm going to go ahead and pop on in and I'm going to show you this amazing slide that beautiful Melissa put together to help us kind of understand the why. What's happening?
And I want to say, you know what? I didn't put this together by myself. This is, this everything that we do here is a collaboration of moms, and so it is everyone pitching in to help. So a friend helped me create this for the presentation that I did on Saturday at that event in LA. So, but we're going to go through, it's a great visual, I think. So we're going to go through this and just explain what we've been finding in the records. So we did a bunch of records requests to districts across the state. So there's something called the California Public Records Act, and that allows you to request records from any public entity. So that would include emails, communications of any kind. So we were able to ask for records within school districts, various school districts across the state. And how this began was because of, in our first 3 episodes about Capistrano Unified, is that it was really clear that there was an organization, a maneuver that took place. So, and I wanted to dig a little deeper to see if that was happening anywhere else, because what we saw was this organization between trustees, agency employees, outside organizations, basically lying to students and recruiting them to come to the board meeting to block the public out. The kids were really riled up, and they had been told a lot of things that were not true. And so you saw this manipulation of the kids. And the outcome of this policy was that, the board voted against it. And it was as if they needed it to look like the public was opposed to this parental notification policy, which is not the case. But they were able to make it look like that through a lot of maneuvering. And so when we dug a little bit deeper and we started looking at other districts, we could see this organization. And that came out of looking in the records in Capo, because we could see these centers organizing people for other district board meetings, right, and organizing people for a recall, which, these centers are supposed to be what's called 501c3, was a tax exempt organization. Mm-hmm. So they're not allowed to have a political arm, but they most certainly are participating in that. So to start off, we did all of these records requests, in various districts up and down the state, and we found a pattern. And so we made this graphic so that we could explain the pattern. So number one, that is that's showing our tax dollars going to the government. So,
and we all have to pay those.
Yes. So our state and federal tax dollars we're paying for this, which is terrible. Like, these are not the kind of things I want to be paying for, right, my tax dollars. And I'll bet probably the majority of
everyone listening is feeling the same exact
correct way. I think probably 99%, except whoever's not profiting off of this scheme. But anyway, so number one is we're paying our tax dollars. And so what happens from there is to number two. So our tax dollars, they fund pediatric gender diversity programs. So what that means is sex change procedures on minors. So what they're funding pediatric gender diversity programs and research hospitals across the state. And we can see that there's a website that's called U.S. Federal Spending. I can link it in the description as well. And you can see the hospitals receiving this grant money you key in pediatric gender diversity program, and there I found University of California, Irvine. And so then
I think just starting with that information, I think would blow people's mind is that our government is funding this kind of research.
Yeah, well, in the like, who is our government? Where does our government get its money?
Right.
We are funding it without, it's getting funded
without our okay.
Without our okay, and it's insane.
And they're taking away our right to know what's happening.
Everything. Like, they set the table for all of this. Like, our state set the table for this with legislation that blocks parents out of knowing what gender their child identifies at school. And then also they set the table for it by blocking parents out of the medical decisions. So at age 12 now in the state of California, the kid can get services, quote unquote, sensitive services. And even if you're the premium payer as the parent, you pay the premium for the insurance policy, the kid can use the insurance to get a sensitive service such as this at age 12 or older. And you can't see their medical records without their express consent. So why remove, we were talking about this the other day, you and I, about like the two Ys, and how I was telling you about there's an XY and there's an XX, and then there's a why. Why? So like, I was thinking like, okay, why are they doing this? Which sadly, it's generally the answer is money. Right? And I don't know the motivating factors for all of the people across the board who are maneuvering to have this happen. Perhaps for a school board trustee, it's for their political seat. What's really sad is that I think these people, they toe the line for their party, and it's much like, it reminds me of Nazi Germany. But people saying, well, I did that for my job. Like, I'm sorry, you need to think as an independent person. Like, you don't just take whatever behavior because of your job,
Right.
And so, anyway, so from the hospital, so we've established that our tax dollars they're funding research hospitals. So then the research hospitals, what we found in our district is that the center is collaborating with the hospital. So this LGBTQ Center of OC is collaborating with the University of California, Irvine Pediatric Gender Diversity Program. And the thing is that the centers, the LGBTQ centers, they work as the sales force. So what you see is that from the public records, from the schools, you can see that they are getting bombarded with requests to come to campus, bombarded with marketing materials, once they establish these relationships with the kids on campus. And then, as I mentioned, there's this political arm. So like, the center establishes relationships, and that you can see in frame 3. The center creates relationships with this select school board trustees who are, what they call friendlies. You can see it in the documents. These are our friendlies, as they're organizing to come into meetings that are not even, where they're not even stakeholders. So they come with their posse to basically, control what happens at the meeting. And the school board trustees are a party to this. So the center creates relationships with the trustees. The trustees find teachers within the schools. The centers also recruit what are called GSA leaders. That's Gay Straight Alliance leaders. So those leaders, those teachers on campus, they hold these clubs for the kids during the school day. So again, taxpayer dollar at work. This is a teacher at school holding this club. And you heard me.
If I remember, we have proof of that in the original podcast that we did, where the teacher had identified themselves as the GSA.
We have tons of, yes, that is in the first podcast. Like, I think we show several of them there, but these are people who are on campuses, K through 12. Like, some of these schools are K through 8 schools. There are communications that we find where like a GSA is saying like, well, we're trying to stay my principal wants us to stay under the radar, so to speak, to, keep us from, away from these very, I don't know what she called extreme or aggressive parents, so there's always this thing of like positioning the parents as like this hate group or these crazy people or these And it's just like, I don't understand why they believe that they should have this position in a child's life, in a
Right.
student's life. That is the position of a parent, full stop.
Absolutely.
This is not the position of the teachers and the trustees. But unfortunately, they're able to recruit people into these positions. And then, what we saw in San Diego records is, you know, we see in Orange County and a lot of them where they're in a lot of districts where they're inviting the reps then come to the campus and they establish relationships with the kids. And then the kids are bombarded with invitations to parties and gatherings and all these things at the centers. But in San Diego specifically, we see that they are busing the kids for field trips during the school day to the centers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Another taxpayer dollar.
like to these centers, and again, like, parent wouldn't know if the kid is 12 and older, like the kid can do this without their parents' knowledge or consent. And in fact, in Irvine records, we see that there are 110 kids with gender support plans, and we get the gender support plans, and you can see like the information is redacted as far as like the student's name, but you can see this other information. I showed you that yesterday of where it was like, it's obviously a male student who is now using the girls' locker room and restroom, but the information that you saw in that document that I shared with you, and we'll link all this in the podcast description. But it said specifically like,
please only use him, her, or him, he, him with the parents. Do not tell them that they are under the study. Correct?
It's not a study.
I'm sorry. My memory is not what it once was.
That basically, all this is it's called a gender support plan. So it's like, and they have, but what's so scary at Irvine, they have a whole department devoted to this. Like, and let me tell you about why why we looked into Irvine, because I was at the Capo meeting and I really was just like, why are they doing this? Like, I don't understand. And I was looking at these people who were there to oppose the parental notification policy. And this one woman was wearing a sticky badge that said like, hello, my name is, but it said like Capo parent. And I had promised myself, like the Christian part of me, like I really do want to understand. Like and I went up to her and I said, can we talk? Can we have a conversation? I just really want to understand, like, what brought you here tonight? Like, why you oppose this policy? Like, you're a Capo parent. And she said, yeah. And then through the course of our conversation,
it didn't sit right.
Well, she said she called herself an activist, and she told me that she was employed by Irvine. Oh. And so then we found that she's actually affiliated with the LGBTQ the center. So all of these places, like they need to justify their existence by having patients, basically. So like, the centers, the hospitals, probably the things on campus in Irvine, like, so this is not, what I'm saying to you is that this is not based upon attraction. This is based upon promotion, that these kids get into what I see as this patient mill. Because if the kid was just organically had this, you probably would have families dealing with it. You would go probably to a counselor, and then maybe to maybe you go to a center. I don't know, but then maybe, I don't know. All I know is that we had fat stacks of documents. So like I printed out the documents for Capo, and it was for a 2-month period of time. You remember the old fat yellow pages?
Yes.
So,
oh no, that big,
that many pages of, and those were just the communications to the teachers within Capo. So in a 2-month period of time, like a fatter than a yellow book, yellow pages, And so then we found the same things. Like I want to say that we got close to 1,000 documents in San Diego. 1,000. Yeah. So then we have read through all of this and look through all of this. And then we find, as I mentioned, it was emails where we found that these teachers were contacting the center and setting up field trips, and they entice the kids with pizza. They say, we're going to have pizza and snacks. And there's a teacher in San Diego. She's an 8th grade teacher. She teaches science and English. And She reached out in an email to one of these centers asking about getting a wig for a foster
Oh my
trans.
goodness.
And, for me, what I think is that, who knows what that kid has been through.
Yeah.
To think that a wig is going to be something that will
Make them all their problems go away.
right. It's really
And this teacher was a
English and science teacher at
okay.
Riley K through 8 school. So,
Yeah.
um, so yeah, these centers are hard at work. The centers are local to like the area of, so they will have a draw from a bunch of different schools in the district. So for
Right.
example, like the center in San Diego, they have multiple centers actually. It's the center SD, but then they have Hillcrest Youth Center, which is doing programs for 10 to 13 years old. And then they have like this South Bay Center, and then they have this trans family support center.
Making it even easier for children to access that without their parents driving them there because it's local.
Yeah, I think so, but well, we see obviously that they go on field trips there. There were middle school students that were also taken on field trips by bus and I'm thinking with this foster child, right? Like, I don't know, like what is their life like? I know when I was little, we didn't get to have pizza very often. We were really poor and you probably could have had me on that bus.
Absolutely.
If you offered me pizza.
If you made me feel like I had a community, if I was understood, if someone saw me, I would have bought it hook, line, and sinker. I don't care what they were selling. I just wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to have, quote unquote, a big family.
And I think somebody was telling me that yesterday. They call it like their glitter family. Somebody was telling me this, that they say you don't need your family because you have your glitter family.
Oh,
but I know
that's heartbreaking.
But the thing is, if all of this existed and the parents were in the loop, like I still wouldn't like, this sales, because look, we're not allowed to have cigarette ads in magazines because it is advertising something. And this was a point that one of the moms brought up to me, and I was like, that's brilliant, because they're advertising their goods and services for the hospital and the center. They're bringing them in the back door to these students, and it really is a sales pitch. These are sales reps that are coming to the school to pitch this, and then everything is about solidifying this idea of changing their gender. And what does that look like ultimately? That looks like medical. You know what I mean? Like, if a kid is really then more and more, this is being promoted to them more and more, and they get more entrenched and more, I think, groomed into this, then they're going to be making a medical decision. And now, since the state of California has set the table for this, and parents can go and look at, I think it's My School, My Rights, and go to the medical or the health portion of that, and read those answers, because it's shocking and people don't want to believe it. They're like, oh, that's not true. Well, really, we do have the documents. We're going to link all of the documents in the description of this podcast having to do talked about today, but we're also going to be putting them out on our social media platforms. But as far as like looking at the spending for research hospitals, you can do a search on that. I think it's U.S. federal spending is where we found that. And then like the thing that I was saying with the hospitals, you can do an easy search on the hospitals. Just put in like pediatric gender diversity program, and that will come up. But we wanted to show this video too about like in Orange County how we saw this collaboration. We showed you in our first 3 episodes about the collaboration of keeping the parents out of the decision making as far as parental notification went, and then once the parents are kept out of that, and you've got these GSA leaders on campus, and they're bringing the reps from the center to come and talk to the kids, and then the kids start going to the centers, and they're invited to all kinds of Halloween parties. And also, these wellness centers on campus are a problem. That's another place where they promote. This is something that they have passed through under this moniker of inclusion, which is really a way to, I think, psychologically abuse children. And it's not just psychologically, but like when they get into then
Right.
mutilating
It is
their
forever.
bodies forever, and their brain is not fully developed. So
Yeah. And I think what you mentioned this before too, but I think whenever um the documentation that I have seen, it just blows my mind. Because if you've ever volunteered in a school or ever worked with kids and you have to take those classes, it's nothing can be in the dark. Nothing can be a secret. And yet consistently it's don't tell the parents, keep this, to ourselves. Don't share the information. It's so frightening because it's confusing for one. And then you're not, I don't know.
Well, and then like to the why, right? I didn't get to the second why. So the second why is like why you need to do something now. Why like we need to unite as parents. Why you and I are doing this podcast. Like this is not, we're not doing this for fun as a hobby in our spare time. And like the number of hours that have gone into getting to reading through all of the emails, the time that it has taken from our own families and all of this, like it's been in collaboration with a lot of moms because we care and because we see that a lot of people are still trying to say, oh, that doesn't exist, and to be in this denial. And when you look at these documents in the black and the white, it's very shocking, isn't it, Angela?
It is.
I mean,
I didn't want to believe it. I'm going to tell you, I'm just like most people listening. I kept thinking, this can't really be happening.
Yeah. And then that's why, and I'm the same way. Like I'm like, well, let me just see. And that's why I got the documents. That's why I should say, I can't say because it's a lot of moms and dads that have helped like get these documents and pull them all together and see this pattern across the state. And so we, again, this is not a hobby. When people say thank you for all you're doing, like I feel just a moral obligation to do it, because how can you know this information and do nothing about it?
Yeah.
And
all you did was go off an instinct. Something told you it wasn't right.
Yes.
You went looking, and be careful what you look for, because sometimes you find the rotten.
Well, you and I have talked about this before. And, for me, like, I believe that those are the nudges of God. Like those are, because I am a person of faith, that I feel, and there are stories and ways, like even how we met each other, you and I, and we'll go into that at another time. But like, you could not, like, this was supposed to come out. And I believe this is not because, I'm a genius and I work alone. You know what I mean?
You are, though.
No,
you are such a genius.
It's because of all of the parents love, like love wins. Love shines a light on things. So like, that's the whole part when they're throwing at you these things of like, you're a hate group, you're a bigot. Like, I have so many gay friends that are just, again, like so against this, and they're like, I don't get it. Like, how can I be, bigoted or I'm transphobic? Like, this is, I'm sorry. No. And that's just the way that they want to shut you up and shut you down. And think about what happens. Like, maybe your feelings might be hurt out of that for like 1 second, like somebody snubs you, but like really think about what's happening to children. Like when you don't open your mouth, when you don't say to your friend, like, hey, have you seen these things from these records? I listened to this podcast and I heard this story. Could you just check it out? Like, so share this with other people. More importantly, one of the things our other podcast was the Protect Kids of California.
Yes.
So can
we need numbers. We need people to sign. We're going to repost the link so that you can get your petition signed, get your friends to sign. Do you want to?
Well, we should tell you. We tell them what it does. So like, it keeps biological males out of female spaces like locker rooms and restrooms. Keeps them out of sports, out of and we've had firsthand experience where we've had girls lose their place. Like these athletes train for years and years and years, and then to get bumped out by a biological man is just unbelievable. And I don't understand. I would consider myself somewhat of a feminist, like and so I don't understand like how people are handing over those spaces in sports. And then the final thing that it does is it would stop all of this, the hormones, puberty blockers, and surgeries on minors. They'd have to be 18 in order to make those decisions. So, but the last thing that we wanted to share before we go is this. This is a video from the center that is bombarding our schools in Capistrano Unified and other districts surrounding in the area. This is located in Santa Ana, California. You can see here that they are working in collaboration with UCI Health. And it says gender diversity program, but like when you look up the name of these doctors who they mention in here, you look up pediatric gender diversity program, you see these names listed, these people who are coming to this center. So we've established that the kids are coming to this center, they're invited to this center, they have relationships with this center as a result of the relationship that is built because the school has permitted, allowed it. That's how they get to the center. So once they're at the center, this UCI, these physicians are coming to once a month to the center to talk to the kids about hormones, puberty blockers, and sex change surgeries. And this can all be done, again, without parents' knowledge or consent from the age of 12 up. So you can listen to that on your own. You can look that up. That is on YouTube, and it's under the OC LGBTQ, or I'm sorry, it's LGBTQ Center of OC, and it's under trans orientation. So they bring these doctors, the staff from University of California, Irvine, to meet with the kids in person and talk to them about this. And one of the things that we failed to mention before is that, you know, the very scary thing that they have a liaison that will help them navigate their insurance, like, and get their services paid for. So when you couple that with this stuff with them being marketed to at school, about the parents being blocked out, when you see these maneuverings of school board trustees, when you see these people participating in recall efforts of trustees who have tried to put a parental notification policy in place, you know that there is something, you know, there's a conflict of interest here. Like there's money that that people that are profiting, people that are, you know, and so
if you don't want people to think you're doing shady things, don't make it look shady. Include the parents in the conversation, and maybe we wouldn't have to have this podcast right now.
Right. But I think that, you know, when people just keep having, when I saw all this stuff, and it really has been, you and I were talking about this before we started recording, but like this, the heartbreak of this, of discovering this and then holding back until we got more information, like trying to see, is there a pattern in these districts, and then seeing it there. Like it's horrific. It's been so heavy, you know, and again, it just sort of came up that the cat was coming out of the bag now because of the event over the weekend. That the most important thing is that this doesn't just become a sensationalized news story, that this is something that parents tell other parents, and so on and so on and so on, so that we get the signatures for the petition, that we have these conversations so that people know what's going on. So we stop voting for trustees that are benefiting from destroying kids.
Yeah.
You know, there are people, you know, where we experienced in our very own district, you know, that are, that voted against, there were 5 trustees that voted against a parental notification policy, you know, and why? Because it's this, you know, it's this trans student hustle.
Yes.
Hashtag trans student hustle. And that is, and it's a patient mill. And so we see this across the state, and I would not be surprised if it's across the nation. You and I were talking about that too, about, you know, we want to teach people how to do these California Public Records Act requests. In other states, it's called a FOIA, Federal Information Act. And so we want parents to join together. Like you and I are moms, right? Like I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a, you know,
you're learning as you go.
Yeah. And I don't want this to happen to anybody's kid. And even if I don't want this to happen to any kid, a kid in foster care, anybody's kid, like, this is not appropriate. It's not appropriate. It's not appropriate, period.
And if you care about kids, you care about all kids.
Yeah.
Even if you feel like it's not, I think we talked about this yesterday, even if you're not worried about your child being affected, you have to realize that this is going to affect the peers, their peers.
Mm-hmm. I hear people saying like, oh, me and mine,
Right.
you know, I'll look out for me and mine. Well, looking out for me and mine means your children are going to need community. And if you think about the number of kids that are in these schools in California, these public schools that, I love the idea of pulling the kids out and putting them in private schools or homeschooling them, but that is not realistic for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And so should those people that are, left with this as an alternative, like should their kids be destroyed and then end up destroying our civilization because they're so confused and because these are our children's peers, these are our future. And I was listening to Riley Gaines talking, and she was talking about 40, what's this going to look like 40 years from now, and that's what you have to think. Like, I didn't have my children so late in life to have them go out into some crazy world, and so
crazier world. It's going to be crazy one way or the other, but we need to do what we can to protect kids.
And sticking your head in the sand, like we got the documents for you. You don't even have to look for them. Like, we have them. So look at them, inform your friends. Like, you can't keep saying this isn't happening. It's happening. And
if you've got a friend that's saying it's not happening, please check the link that we're going to put up. We'll also, if you follow us on Instagram, we'll also be posting things in reels and on the feed so that you can share that easily.
The documentation by the district.
People can't sit and listen to a whole podcast, but we got to get the information out. So we want to thank everybody for listening.
Can I add one more thing?
Yeah, for sure.
Teachers.
So please stand up.
Yes, the teachers could end a lot of this. Like, if you have teachers in your lives, like, please tell them that a precedent was set in a case. This attorney, Paul Jana, there were 2 teachers in Escondido, but the teachers in Escondido said that this was against their religion, and they won the lawsuit. And so you have protections, and we can connect you with people who can help you, because I suspect, because there are a lot of wonderful teachers, like as I'm talking about these GSAs, these people who are doing this stuff to promote this to kids, like they have some boundary issues. Like, it's not their place, and they've become confused, and the school has allowed them to do this. The schools and the state, really. But there are great teachers that are still working within these environments, and they're going along with stuff that is against their own virtue. And we want to like support you in being courageous to not, and to let you know that
silent is just as much as a part of the problem.
Yeah, you become complicit to it. And like, and I understand, like, it's the same thing as these athletes, like when they work for years and years and years, and then they get, defeated by a biological male, like, the teachers think, oh, I've been at this school for all this time and just waiting for my retirement. Like, I'll just keep my mouth shut. Like, no, you have protections. So if the teachers stand up, if the teachers say, no, we're not referring to the kids in this way, it would make a big change. But for right now, we need people to sign that petition, the protectkidsca.com, print it up, circulate it to your network of friends, get it signed. I hope that this information is a motivator to you. And we are getting this, the documentation out as quickly as possible. But again, we're moms. We are trying to raise children. We work. This is volunteer. Every second of it is volunteer. So we need your help too. So pitch in.
Yes. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
Take care.